Democracy, abortion, immigration, and the glass ceiling. The big talking points that emerged out of day one of the Democratic National Convention, or the DNC. The four-day Democratic National Convention has kicked off as thousands of delegates gather in Chicago, less than 80 days away from the November elections. Even as Kamala Harris rallies ahead of Donald Trump in the opinion polls so far, the Dems are leaving no stone unturned to hit back at the Republicans. The highlight of the first night of the DNC was the Blues sending off Joe Biden and the president passing the mantle to Kamala. The US president was welcomed with applause, with cheers and a long-standing ovation for both him as well as the First Lady, Dr. Jill Biden. Now, as he gave his farewell speech, Biden said choosing Kamala as his running mate in 2020 was the best decision he has made in his whole career.
It's been the honor of my lifetime to serve as your president. I love the job, but I love my country more. Thank you. I love my country more, and we need to preserve our democracy. In 2024, we need you to vote. We need you to keep the Senate. We need you to win back the House of Representatives. And above all, we need you to beat Donald Trump.
I want to kick us off by celebrating our incredible President, Joe Biden. Joe, thank you for your historic leadership, for your lifetime of service to our nation, and for all you will continue to do. We are forever grateful to you. Let us fight for the ideals we hold dear, and let us always remember, when we fight, we win. God bless you. God bless the United States of America.
Now, the other big point was abortion, as Democrats busted Trump in the Roe versus Wade case. Several women came in front and talked about their own experiences. Ones who underwent life-threatening pregnancy complications but couldn't have an abortion, and the ones who were denied health care after a miscarriage. Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton was there on day one as well, and she saluted Kamala for possibly breaking the highest, hardest glass ceiling to become America's first woman president.
Together, we put a lot of cracks in the highest, hardest glass ceiling. Tonight, so close to breaking through once and for all. So, with faith in each other and joy in our hearts, let's send Kamala Harris and Tim Walz to the White House.
On day two, the focus will be on the Obamas, whose support for Kamala was first questioned, then mocked for seemingly being artificial and cosmetic. Now, before I go to my guests on the show today, here's Times Network consulting editor Srinjoy Chaudhary explaining the opinion polls.
The Democratic National Convention is going on in Chicago, of all places, where it happened in 1968, and it was incredibly disruptive then. It's much, much better now. And you would expect Kamala Harris, the vice president, to come out of it with a 5 to 6 point lead over Donald Trump. But the question is, even if that lead is there, 6%, is that going to last till, let's say, the 5th of November? That's a very critical point, because people have had big leads and people have lost it. The one of the example, a prime example of that, was the case of Michael Dukakis in 1988. He had a 17-point lead at the end of the Democratic National Convention, and he blew it, and he lost by 8 points. Now, is history going to repeat itself? Nothing as drastic is likely to happen, but it's very important for Kamala Harris to hold on to that lead, especially in 3 states, in what is called the Democratic Blue Wall: the Wisconsin, the Michigan, and the Pennsylvania areas, because those will provide her with enough, just enough, to win the presidential elections.
All right, let me get in my guests on the show. I'm joined by Narender Reddy, Republican candidate from Georgia State Assembly. I'm also joined by Josh McLaurin, Democratic State Senator. Good evening, namaskar. Welcome to both of you. Narender Reddy, let me start with you. The Grand Democratic National Convention is underway. You've got the likes of Obama's, Clinton's joining in, showing their support for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. And this comes amid opinion polls showing that Kamala Harris is leading Donald Trump. Does that at all, or how much does it worry Republicans?
Republicans are not really worried about it because at the time of the convention, it is a standard always we see just before the convention and right after the convention, the candidates ratings will go up. That is not unusual. But the real scrutiny of Kamala Harris has never happened because she never really contested in the presidential election. Even before the primary started, she dropped out into 2020. So the scrutiny will be much more on Kamala Harris in the next few weeks, if you see. After the convention, you will see more and more things will come up about her inefficiency, incompetency, or what she did not do as a vice president, what she did do as a vice president, and also her background as Attorney General of California. These things will come up. You will also see as a trend many times in October surprise. Whatever the ratings you see today will not be there by the first week of October. Whatever ratings that comes on October first week, that should concern everybody.
Okay, let me get in Josh on this. Josh, do you resonate with this entire argument that has been presented by Mr. Reddy? The fact that opinion polls don't matter much right now and they're going to be changing after the DNC.
Hi, Shreya. It's great to join you. I think that any attempt to impose conventional wisdom on what we're seeing right now is a mistake. Biden has made a generational, selfless move to take himself out of the race and make the way for the next generation to take leadership. And what that means is that the American people are given a brand new opportunity to believe in politics, to be inspired, to have hope. I think the polls that you're seeing that have already jumped before the convention are not just an aberration, and they're certainly not as far up as Harris can go. I think that Donald Trump probably has something like a ceiling for his support because the country knows who he is. They're tired of him. He's got his core supporters that will never go away, but he's having a hard time building that coalition. Harris is just beginning to build her coalition. So I don't agree with the argument because I think that an over focus on polls and conventional wisdom doesn't really capture what's happening in this moment.
Okay, Josh, then, let me also talk about the issues. Very understandably and quite expectedly, the Democrats focused on abortion as one of the top issues. They talked about it. There were women who came forward and they shared their experiences as well. But one of the things that we saw before the DNC started was the protesters outside the convention center. And these were protesters that were asking the Biden administration to stop supplying weapons and ammunition to into the wars while calling for stopping the wars. Wouldn't that go against the Dems?
Are you asking me?
Yes, Josh, this is for you.
Sure. Look, the fact that we have protesters outside of the DNC who are creating some tension in the party, that just shows how big of a tent Democrats have. We have both pro-Israel and pro-Palestine voices that can exist under the same tent. And that's really important. The Republican Party does not have room for ideological diversity. They have an insistence on conformity. They have an authoritarian leader in the form of Donald Trump. And I think that most pragmatists know that Donald Trump would be a lot worse for Gaza and Palestine than Kamala Harris would be. Kamala Harris is committed to getting a ceasefire in exchange for return of hostages, and she's committed to
But Josh, one of the arguments that's given is that you might paint Donald Trump as this great dictator and somebody who's not good for America, but the fact remains that his reign, his regime did not see two wars, while the Biden administration has seen both the Russia-Ukraine war as well as the Israel-Hamas war?
Sure. I mean, I don't think that we can attribute the timing of other countries' decisions to who's in charge over here so cleanly. I mean, Biden was the one who followed through and got us out of Afghanistan, right? So he's trying to downplay our military's presence elsewhere. I think that Trump is a lot more unpredictable, and maybe that has some sort of effect on Putin. But Trump's unpredictability makes us less secure, not more. So I think that the key is that Netanyahu knows that Trump would let him have much more of a free hand in pursuing his aggressive domestic policies than Harris would. Harris has held Netanyahu accountable and has made that very clear.
All right. I believe there is some sort of network issue with Mr. Reddy. While we fix that, Josh, let me also understand from you then, just the fact that immigration has seen such widespread protests across America, illegal immigration, is something that everybody is concerned about in America. The youngsters are voicing their opinions on it. The American citizens are very concerned about what is happening on the streets of the United States. That clearly hasn't been seemingly addressed by the Biden administration, by Kamala Harris during her campaigns, not very clearly talking about illegal immigration and what she would do when she becomes the president.
I actually completely disagree with you. The Biden administration oversaw the formulation of a bipartisan bill that would have drastically expanded the amount of resources that we send to the Mexico border, as well as change some of the asylum provisions to make sure that they are more efficient and tailored towards people who actually need asylum. This bipartisan immigration package was tanked by Donald Trump. He is on record saying that he wanted Republicans to vote against it so that the immigration issue would, quote, still be on the table for him for the election. That means that he wanted to campaign on immigration, accuse Democrats of doing nothing. You have Republicans like Lankford in the Midwest who are Senate Republicans who are frustrated that the work they did on the bipartisan package never came to fruition because Donald Trump gave a stand-down order. So let's be perfectly clear. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden have been leading on immigration. They have been trying to get bipartisan reform done, and they have been vocal about this issue, but Republicans have tried to block that progress so that they could campaign on the issue this November.
Narendra Reddy, I believe he's back with us on the show. Narendra Reddy, what seemingly is concerning, is disturbing, is that Donald Trump has been lashing out at Kamala. In the most recent statement, he said, "I look much better than her." I mean, it seems like the Republicans and Donald Trump don't have a better argument against a potential candidate who might become the first female president of America, who is in the race for it. Any other argument that can be presented about her is not being used, and it's just about her looks and about her laughter.
I totally agree with one thing is Donald Trump has to change his strategy. He should focus on the accomplishments that he made during his administration instead of focusing on the personal attacks and personal descriptions of the opponent. We all agree. It is not that only Democrats criticize that. Even in the Republican Party, there is a leadership section that criticizes Trump for doing that. Once he comes back to talking about only the issues, for example, today the southern border is totally open. Anybody can come from anywhere to California and Texas borders, and they can merge with these people. That could be terrorists or anything. On the immigration thing that Josh was talking about, Obama had a 2 years Senate, Congress, and White House. Biden has first years Senate, Congress, and the White House, but they did not do anything. It is just they keep on hanging those things in balance so that they can have their vote banks on their side. I totally agree with one thing. Donald Trump is the most competent person to do things, except his vocabulary and his attacks on the personal attacks on his opponents. If he stopped doing that, he will win this election with thumping majority. That is the same mistake he made in 2020. If he had spoken just about his accomplishments in his 4 years, Biden wouldn't have become president. Unfortunately, Trump did not learn at the
But that's
time.
not Donald
Looks
Trump's
like
personality, Mr. Reddy, isn't it?
I know.
The fact that it's Donald Trump, he's just being quintessential Donald Trump when he's speaking.
But see, now he's been in the politics for at least 8 years, if you count from the 2015. Now he should be learning by now, okay? He cannot keep on doing that. The personal attacks, please, is only a base of supporters who are about 25%. But in this country now, we have more independents who are looking at the economic issues. They're not looking about the abortion issues anymore. They are looking at the practical things. What is the good thing for the country? Who can control these prices? Who can increase our production? Make sure the economy is better. And look at the interest rates. We have the interest rates today 7.5%. That because of that, people are not able to afford housing. When Trump was, we had only 3% interest rate mortgage, so they could buy the homes.
Let me
When the
take
whole
this to
real estate
Josh Narender Reddy. Josh, that's one of the arguments that the Republicans and supporters of Donald Trump say, that Kamala Harris is not speaking about what she would do for the US economy. She's been going back to her roots, about her African-American roots, the Indian roots, about the glass ceiling, about abortion, all of that taken into consideration. But she doesn't speak, and she doesn't speak forcefully and convincingly about what her plan, her vision is for the American economy.
Well, I think the Biden-Harris agenda has been to invest in green energy, to invest in infrastructure, to make these generational investments, because not only do our communities need them, but they create tons of great jobs. They're jobs doing useful things that America needs to go into the 21st century and to basically evolve and become competitive internationally. So that has been the Democratic plan, and she has emphasized that. She's also emphasized putting caps on costs to go after the grocery industry or other industries that are gouging consumers on the price of basic necessities like food. And in addition to that, she wants to cap healthcare costs, like the cost of insulin, which Biden was able to accomplish to some degree this past term. I mean, the contrast could clear. Trump is talking about imposing a 10% or more tariff on all goods entering the United States, and then some special tariffs from China. That is a tax. That's a tax on consumers. It will only make the effects of inflation worse. It's anti-free trade. It's anti-international relationships. And so I think the contrast on the economy could not be clear. And what you're seeing is that the polling indicates that for the first time in a while, voters are trusting Democrats on the economy more than Republicans. Republicans used to think that the economy was their sandbox, the place where they had a stranglehold on public opinion. But that is changing. And I think it just goes to show how erratic Trump is and how bad his policies truly are for the United States.
Josh, can I also then ask you, the fact that you listed out all of these plans by the Biden administration and Kamala Harris, have they been somewhere overshadowed by conversations on Kamala Harris's roots, on where she comes from, what her bringing up was, how she plans to go about abortion? Of course, that is something that has been talked about a lot. She's championed the cause almost. But I think that has been, all of these issues have been overshadowed by the personality, the roots, the origin of Kamala Harris?
I don't think so. I mean, I think that the Republicans would like for those topics to overshadow, because Republicans are hyper-focused on all the things that make people different. They don't trust diversity. Trump at the National Association of Black Journalists was saying that Kamala Harris only recently became Black. That's a very offensive and racist thing to say. I mean, she's both Black and she's South Asian in origin. And so, this distrust of mixed race people, this distrust of people who aren't like us, it kind of dovetails with the xenophobia regarding immigration in general. I mean, Trump has said that immigrants, quote, poison the blood of our country, which is an insane thing to say. So that's the attempt by the Republican Party to make those topics predominate instead of focusing on the kitchen table issues like how families can afford groceries, whether they have access to healthcare, whether our roads and bridges are being fixed so that we can drive around in our communities. Those are the issues Democrats are focusing on, and Republicans are trying to change the subject to Kamala Harris's origins.
Okay. Narendra Reddy, you come from Georgia. You both come from Georgia. And Georgia is the Sun Belt state. It's a swing state. Before Joe Biden pulled out of this race, you had Donald Trump leading the opinion polls. But since Kamala Harris was announced, there has been a neck-and-neck competition between the two. How do you see that really playing out, particularly in Georgia?
Ajay, we're going to do very... Sorry, you are asking me, right? This is
Yes,
Narendra
I'm
Reddy.
asking you, Mr. Reddy.
Okay, in Georgia, even though there was a little bit fluctuation after Trump came here about 2 weeks back, one mistake he made was he was criticizing the popular governor of Georgia, who is a Republican, our Brian Kemp. That took a lot of people into a kind of a backside. They said, no, this is not the person I want to vote, kind of thing. But that is all personal things only for time being. These things are, at the end of the day, everybody is looking for what we are getting out of these elections, who is going to be better for us economically. Not this abortion issue, gun control, those kind of
Okay.
things anymore. People are worried about our prices are really doubled. If you go to the grocery stores in the last 4 years, the prices have been doubled. People could not afford. Second thing is these illegal immigrants who are crossing the border, they are going all over the country, and also some of them are even committing crimes. Nobody can hide it. And that's why the Biden
Sure.
campaign and the Harris campaign...
Narendra Reddy,
Go
I
ahead.
absolutely understand the issues that you're listing out, but I don't know how much of, policies versus personality in that competition, who's working. But quickly, before I wrap this discussion up, my last question to Josh. Josh, day 2 of the DNC will now see the Obamas speaking. Of course, all eyes will be on Michelle and Barack Obama. But there have been questions raised in the past as well as to, why they didn't come out at first in support of Kamala Harris. Even when that video of the phone call was out, it seemed like a very artificial cosmetic video. How do you see that really now? A lot of questions, a lot of doubts still being in place, even as Obamas do address the DNC day 2.
Well, that's news to me. I haven't heard about any of these doubts or questions. The Obamas came out, very soon after Harris was presumptively going to become the nominee to support her. I mean, I think, everyone who's addicted to X or Twitter or watching cable news all the time, it feels like 4 or 5 hours is an eternity. But the reality is that very quickly, everybody came together to say that Harris should be the next nominee. As far as, your description of the Obama's support, I think that the key here is that the Democratic Party could do something that the Republican Party could not, which is say we can do our team effort with a leader who is not the person who is at the top of the ticket. We can reorganize and be revitalized by new energy. We are not a cult of personality who only has one leader. And so, I think even if, let's say for a second that some of the Democratic leaders were hesitant to endorse Kamala so quickly, and maybe there were a couple, the fact that everybody on board just goes to show that we do have the ability to change course. What you're going to see, to the contrast with the GOP, is another 5 to 10 years at least of infighting. They will never be able to get rid of Donald Trump peacefully internally because they are a cult of personality. So I think the Democrats should be held against the standard.
Okay, Josh, let's see how this really moves forward.
Yeah.
3 more days left. Let's see how this really works for the Democrats. I'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much to both of you, Josh McLaurin and Narendra Reddy, for joining us on Mirror Now and sharing your perspective. Thank you very much. All right, viewers, with that, it's a wrap on Nation Tonight. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. But up next is my colleague Sneha Koshi with Beyond the Headline.